Hello, welcome to the Good Life Meditation for March 13th, 2022. My name is Kurt. This is something that I do every day to remember what's important to me in terms of the objectives and principles that I use to guide my life, and to think about how I'm applying those to my everyday. Here come the dogs. First, last night and yesterday. Last night I slept better than usual. I was up a little bit before the alarm, but not too bad. Especially given that I've got a ginormous week coming up. So many things happening this week. I thought I would have been up more anxious. Maybe I was just worn out. Yesterday was a trying day, for both Yumiko and I. Neither of us felt good. We just, sometimes there's just a day when you're just out of sorts. And that was the day for both of us. We didn't even do our shopping. We both did our chores in the morning, took the dogs for a good walk after that, had leftovers for lunch, and pretty much just hung around. I took the dogs for a real long walk in the evening to read. That was the high point of the day for me, for sure. And then we had dinner and I went to bed. Just sometimes you just have a dog day. And it's good when both my wife and I have our dog days in alignment so that we can get it over with. Typically, after a dog day, no offense, guys, after a dog day, things tend to be better. We were thinking about going to Irvine today, but I think we're probably just going to we have to catch up on our shopping. We could slip a trip into Irvine nonetheless. Maybe. There was something else. I don't know. I was hesitant to talk about this because I don't know that I have the words. There was kind of I had an experience on Friday. Part of Friday's experience left me with a feeling. I'm struggling to put it to words. Okay, have you ever visited your old college campus? I did that. Like 20 years after I graduated. I went back and I went to Humboldt State University, which is a small campus. Popular student bodies like 7,500. That's how many it was then, and I think that's how many it is now. It recently became a Cal Poly, so maybe it'll attract a larger student body, but there's not much room to fit anybody else in there. It's a small college, small university in a small town. In some ways, my university experience was everything I wanted out of a university. I laid emphasis on the word I. I wasn't looking for a party or a fraternity or even much of a social scene in university. Pardon me. What I wanted out of university was a venue. A venue to push my understanding. A venue to have a place where I could sit in a chair with my chin in my hands, listening intently to someone very interesting talking about very interesting things. I had no interest in homework, no interest in reading, studying books, had very little interest in grades, had virtually no interest in graduation. What a fool. Why the hell was I even there? I was there because my father had, without explicitly saying so, he had instilled within me, the idea that university was essential. That whatever else I was to do in life, I had to go to university and get a degree. And it wasn't, he'd never made it that the end would be that I would have a better career or have more opportunities. It was kind of more along the lines of the sense of, I'm reading a lot of 18th century literature right now. It's kind of along the lines of the reason that a lot of those young people, men usually, they sent their young men to places like Oxford and places like that, was to give them a well-rounded, to smooth off the edges and create a foundation of something to build a thinking life out of. A thinking life. I literally, it took me a long time because I only roughly followed the curriculum towards a degree. Each semester, I don't even know if it was semesters or quarters. Each time it came around time to pick new classes, I literally would go through the catalog like a diner in a restaurant, trying to decide what looked best. I think, I knew I had to squeeze in some vegetables in there, right? So I had to take some of the stuff that would lead to my degree. So I'd take that, what kind of classes did I not enjoy? I didn't enjoy math. I would take that. I knew I should enjoy math, but I didn't. Mostly they were all okay, but there was just a few that I just couldn't comprehend. Math was probably the only one, the main one. This, that, and then there were a couple of subjects that the professors were just toads. Johnson. I was reading it yesterday. Johnson was talking about that, and he was talking about a fellow of his that went to Oxford. Johnson went to Oxford, but never finished, but wound up with a master's degree from Oxford nonetheless. Figure that out. Well earned, by the way. 100% unanimous agreement by the leadership of Oxford at the time that he should be conferred with the Master of Arts, an AM as they would have called it back then. Johnson was referring to somebody that when he had been there as a student, who saw someone that was there with him that he knew that remained on and became a professor at Oxford. And Johnson referred to making a livelihood in literature, either, how did he say it? I wish I could remember. It had the essence of, sucking at the teat of academia versus, as he described it, living in London and making it by the seat of your pants, which is what Johnson was doing. The life of poverty and pain and challenge. Trying to find his way in the literary world. Anyway, way off point. When I went back to Humboldt State University, it was like walking through, when I had been there before, it had been a magical place. Not because the place exuded a sense, any effervescence of any sort, but because I was enchanted by all the potential. I had this great institution. To me, it was a great institution. It's a nothing really on the scale of universities. But I think that's part of the reason I liked it so much. I didn't like it as much as my junior college, but I'm getting off point again. That's interesting. I just realized something. I'll get to that. When I went back, that was all gone. And it wasn't because the institution didn't have it anymore. It was because I was no longer of a capacity to capitalize on what it had to offer. I was an older man. Not the old man that I am now, but the older man that I was at the time I visited. And I walked through it. I walked through that place that had once been magical to me, that had seemingly lost its magic. Again, no fault of the university. The fact that I had changed, not the university. I had moved on. Funny that I just get back to that point I was just thinking about. I don't feel that way when I visited. I didn't feel that way when I visited Chaffey College, though, with my family. Visiting Chaffey College was like, that familiar trope that the kids say. It's like when they go back to their old neighborhood, I thought it was bigger than this, right? That's how I felt about Chaffey. It still felt like a magical place to me. I wonder why that was, why that is. Anyway, the whole point of all of this was yesterday I was feeling kind of down. And the reason that I was feeling kind of down was I had had that same experience in the desert, a place that was magical to me once. It still is in a way, but the place where I wrote Going Alone, and the landscape that was so, what is the word? It's like fecundity. It's so rich in the production of ideas. Half this book is the italicized inspiration of the muse, the words that came as a result of not actually being in Siberia and the surrounding desert, the result of having gone there and being so inspired. And yet, on Friday when I went, I felt like all that was largely gone. It was like walking through the university 20 years later. A pleasant memory of a place where I once belonged. It's hard. I'm hesitant even to say this, but it feels like in a way that the desert is no longer a place where I belong. That season seems to be done, and that's okay. I have a new season, dawning now and ahead. But more about that another time. So that's part of why it was kind of a dog day yesterday. For Yumiko, she's very sensitive to her health. She's subject to headaches, and yesterday got her for that. Poor thing. Hope she feels better this morning. Anyway, let's do my good life meditation. 7 objectives. Number 1 is to be always ready to die, to have everything in order, my finances, my papers, my relationships, and my life's work. My book is sitting here, propped up, ready to go. If I was to die, Emily will find that. My family, they all know I love them. I tell them that regularly. And my finances are in the best order I could possibly have them, given my life. The second objective is to make good and effective use of my time, to not be wasting my moments and my days and my life away. Number 3 is to develop and maintain good objectives and principles to live by. This daily remembrance and recitation and consideration is my act of maintaining the good life principles, the good life creed. Next is to cultivate good emotional reactions, to react well to the day. Oh, I didn't give you an update on that thing with the house. Remember I talked about that last week? About the guy that let his car go and crashed into the house. I've finally had an awkward encounter. Speaking of good emotional reactions, I went back to that house twice and nobody ever answered the door. Because remember, the guy across the street said, no damage, got in his car and drove away. And I did figure out that he was the neighbor that lives across the street, because I saw the van parked there. Pardon me. Well, anyway, I got it in my head that I had to communicate to the neighbor of the affronted house, the house that had been collided with, because he'd been wronged. And I was certain that his neighbor across the street wasn't going to say anything, because the way he behaved and what he said. Finally, one day Yumiko and I were coming back from the dog park and after lunchtime, and both neighbors were outside. The guy that had ran the car into the house and the guy that owned the house was there in his garage. And this is where I'm talking about good reactions. This is where it relates to that. And I've told you that my wife has the best sense. It's one of the things so endears me to her. She's so wise. But I can be forthright. As we approached the houses, I had resolved, here's my chance. I'm going to talk to him. And I thought, I knew I thought in a flash, this could go bad. That guy I could tell him, he could that guy over there, he ran into my house. And, I don't need to elaborate. That could have turned out bad. And I did. I walked up, and as we were walking up, I was going up the driveway, Yumiko stopped at the curb, and I heard her say, I don't know about this. And I know what she meant. That's the point where I wish I was further along in my maturity. I should have heeded, if not my gut feeling, I should have heeded my wife and not confronted then. But just gone on and come back another day, or left a note. That was my other idea. That would have been the best thing of all, to leave a note. Anyway, I walked up. The guy was in his garage. I hailed him, hello, and he kind of gave me a suspicious look, although I was dressed nicely. It was a work day after all. I was like, what do you want? And I explained, this all happened in, 20 seconds. I said, I just wanted to, I'm your neighbor. I live down the street. I just wanted to ask if you knew what happened to your house. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, I know. Yeah, he told me. Now, I goes from being, I guess that very revealing, huh? It's all about me, isn't it? Go from being good Samaritan to being, nosy neighbor in a heartbeat. Yet, I'm going to hold on to the idea that I meant well. And nothing happened. I don't even think the guy across the street realized that we had that conversation. Although I did drive by later. I do really sound like a snoopy neighbor. I'm not. I just live here. I did drive by later, and I saw the two of them together. The one neighbor that got his house, hit, was across the street talking to the other guy watering his yard. And I couldn't help but in my imagination ask them, what about that nosy neighbor that came by to poke his nose in our business? How could I have done better? I think the only trip up was that I should have followed my wife's advice and my gut feeling, which was to not engage in that conversation while both of them were present, because that could have gone bad. I got lucky there. I should have just written a note and left it on his doorstep and left it at that. I also want to challenge myself to the assumptions that I made. I simply assumed that he wasn't going to say anything. And I latched onto that like a dog on a bone. So how does this relate to good emotional reactions? I guess it's more than emotional reactions. It's thoughtful reactions, giving more thought. Because there was an emotional element to that, the sense of injustice, that I was going to step in and help make things right. You know what I should have done? Also, I should have sat down and talked to my wife afterwards. I said, what do you think I should do? Because she agreed with me that it was wrong. We did talk that far. We did talk about it. And she agreed that it seemed like that guy was going to get away with it, or attempt to get away with that. I bet she would have given me some good advice. Okay, add that to my good life. Listen to wife. Okay, so good emotional reactions. Moving on to perform good actions. Just do good things throughout the day. That's what the spirit of what I was trying to do. And then finally, the last principle or objective is to, two more. To recognize my true limits and my true opportunities. I'll put a note in that one for later when we get done with this. I want to talk about tomorrow. And then finally, to do just one thing at a time and do that thing slowly. All right, now my principles. There are 30. Oh, and the first one is to always be fighting against the things that I think are true, and to use reason as my arbiter of truth, being objective and skeptical, and to remember that I don't seem to have anything that'll last forever about me. Just have a little consciousness that's going to be around for another couple years while I remain alive. And that consciousness is stuck inside of me and can never really be with anybody else. And it also maintains my catalog of right and wrong, which don't float out there in the world on their own. And I have things that I want to do. I want to be a good husband and father. I want to be a good citizen, pursuing the well-being of others and myself, of thinking creatures, basically, trying to make the world a happier place in virtuous ways. And then also to pursue my book, pursue the sharing of the message in my book, because I think it's a worthwhile message. It's a worthwhile experience. And then to remember that everything is made of little pieces, and that we're just reconstituted atoms, every one of us and everything. And everything has some particular nature when it's combined together. And even the atoms themselves have some particular nature. And that free will is probably an illusion. We're just jostling atoms, little Brownian motion, influenced by all the other things happening around us in the universe. And then to try to be mature by learning from both my failures and my successes, and trying to do better in the future, having the strength to improve. And to remember that I need to be social. I need to seek after community and be grateful for people that want to be my friends, and to seek to be to be friendly to others. And to be careful what I say, to use my words carefully, to compose my words carefully, choose just the right vocabulary, and to never gossip. And to be temperate, to control my consumption of life. And to remember that there are absolutely terrible things happening all around me, and that I can hide here in my safe little library room, whatever I want to call this. Maybe I should think of a name for this space. It's very special to me now. Well, it'd be the opposite of the home of faith. and to remember the horror that's happening all around me and that's coming for me too. And to be someone that wants to help alleviate that. Just thinking, I became friends. I got a friend request from my daughter's boyfriend on LinkedIn. I don't know. It's not. They don't call it a friend request. It's a connection request. And I was looking at his profile. Of course, I accepted him, and I was, realizing what a good young man he is. So much of the stuff that LinkedIn is a professional profile, and he's very ambitious. I expect that if they wind up together, they're going to enjoy a very good life together. But what struck me was, and I've known about his ambition all along, but what struck me was the things that were on there that were reflective of the good human being that I know he is, but were quite reflective of that. Talking back to, he's at university, the way that he's using his time there. I'm thinking about this in relation to the horror show. He's actively working to alleviate the horror. And he's not even 21 yet. Good job, Emily. Okay. That's the horror show. As is Emily. I don't talk about that so much because it's so daily for me. But Emily's the same way. I guess they're good. They're a good match. After the horror show comes the Feast of Offal, all the waste and byproduct, and we get upset. Oh no, I forgot to put one in there, which is that which must be borne. You have to bear the fact and reality of the horror show. And then the Feast of Offal, when we give it all up. Kind of got a little sloppy there for a second. Then comes distraction and the great indifference. I really couldn't see the great indifference when I was out on Friday. Couldn't even barely perceive it. It was like being back at that university and the place where I used to ride my skateboard down the slope. And the place where I met Yumiko, the little kiosk there. Just like a faint echo. Not even that. That's how it was in the desert. Yet I know that the great indifference really wasn't there. Okay, next comes the best seat in the house. To not want to be anyone else, be anywhere else, or be doing anything else. Then the path of wildness, the way upward and forward into new life. The risk of avoiding risk, the surface level risks of life, and the deep risk of not challenging ourselves to discover ourselves better. Sin and damnation, falsity, credulity, hope, faith, authority, dogma, and gossip are the sins that lead to damnation in the here and now. Complete oblivion. When we die, there's apparently nothing left of us. No afterlife, no soul, no heaven, no God. We just become a big nothing again, just like we were before we were born. Great life adventure. One or more experiences that become the centerpiece of our life, the thing we build our character on and our story. The season of philosophy, a time to record what we learn along the way. I found an interesting reference to it of a sort. Let me not knock anything over. Here in the life of Johnson. See if I can find it. A little reference that was like, oh, that's the season of philosophy right there. Here it is. But it is yet more dreadful to consider that the powers of the mind are equally liable to change, that understanding may make its appearance and depart, that it may blaze and expire. Well put. Next comes the bullseye aim, striving for the mark but usually missing, the uphill climb, arena, and utility. These principles are the tools that we use in this experience. And then nothing is enough. Reminder to get by with less. And then finally, the principle of fun. Man, I need to work on that one. It's also such serious stuff for me most of the... How did I become such a serious guy? Maybe I'm not serious as much as moody. Anyway, as for today, I'll finish this, read my chapter in the Bible, feed the dogs, come up here, do some reading. All my chores are done. Wait for my wife to get up and then go have a day. I hope you have a day too. Be safe, but not too safe. Take care.